Now let's talk about back stitching on this particular machine. I'm going to show you the first one. I hope that I have the camera in a pretty good angle. I'm going to have to put my hand here. Okay, so when you start out a stitch on this machine, let your needle down, okay, back up, and then back into the fabric, okay? Gives you a good start. Always remember that. Okay, let's okay. A little bit further. Okay, so I'm going to let my presser foot back up with the needle down into the fabric. Okay, I'm going to make a complete turn. Let my presser foot back down, and then I'm going to go over the stitch. Okay, let my needle up, back down, and press the foot up, let it up, and then remove my fabric. Okay, so that's the first back stitch. It's going down on the stitch, now up. And with this here, I don't know if you can see that. See how I'm gently pulling. Pulling, and then I'm going to get something sharp because I pulled that front stitch back through. Okay, I pulled it back through. I don't know if you can see that. I had my hand in the way, but I pulled it back through. I'm going to show you again anyway. This is going to be one of the stitches that I'm going to cut in the stitch. And then that would be our first stitch. Okay. So I went completely down, made a complete 180 turn, and came back up the stitch. Okay, and then I pull this back stitch through, but I'm going to show you that right now because that's another way of securing your stitch. Let's do that last stitch one more time. Okay, pull your needle in, out and back in. Leave the needle in when you start sewing. Back out with your presser foot. Okay, you're going to need this, the two top stitches that are here. You want to pull them through the back. So let's start at the top and then take this stitch and you're going to pull back on it. And I don't know if you see that loop here. Okay, I'm going to pull up on that loop that brought your top thread through the back. You want to tie those two together. And however many knots you want to make, I usually just make 2 good knots. or one good knot actually. Okay, so we pull the top thread to the back. All right, your stitch and your top thread, knot it. Okay, with this, you're going to do the same thing. Okay, take this, you're going to pull. You see a loop. Here, pull your thread out of the loop, and then if you see that loop here, I'm going to pull that thread through. Brought your top thread to the back. You're going to tie them in a complete knot. That's another way of securing your stitches. Okay. There's your stitch. And so I have my thread back, and to remember to bring your needle in, back out, and down again into the fabric. It keeps this stitch, your thread tails from tangling. It's the best way to do that. Okay, I'm gonna start a stitch. And then will help if I put my press up and down with me. Okay, and then with this, I'm going to go ahead and make a 180 turn. I'm going to come back over this same stitch, and then lift my presser foot up, come back. It's going to secure the back part of this stitch. Keep going. In. Press the foot up, out. Okay, so I secured the stitch from the bottom. Another way you can secure your stitch without cutting your ends, get some thread. Okay. And I always keep my thread. You can get like these. You can get the paper ones. These plastic ones came, I think, 56 for $2 something at Joann's. And then yeah, the paper ones come 56 too. No, the plastic ones came 28. I'm sorry, for $2 something. And then these came 56. These are the paper ones for $2 something. And the paper ones are pretty sturdy as well. And I just keep my thread, threaded. And another thing, someone was asking me, not to get off the conversation or anything, another thing someone was asking me about the handheld. I buy these bobbins. You get like 12 of them for $3 and something, and you can just keep your matched bobbins threaded, for this particular machine, and that way you won't have to wind thread every time you get ready to use the machine. Okay, so back on subject. Remember, we made a 180 turn here. So Also, to secure your stitch, you can come to the back and make the stitch upward. You come through that thread, okay? Make sure you come through the thread. And if you feel like you don't have this thread, that you can't do the thread, wrap it around the needle. Around the needle, come through. Do another stitch. And then you're going to tie it off at this point. And you don't have to do too much. You just want to make sure that that stitch is secured. Okay. And you want to cut off your excess. You want to cut off your excess, and then that will secure your stitch as well. Okay. When you use these, you just make put this across, wrap these, but you don't want to you don't want to tie your thread too much around there because it gets tangled up, and then you bring your needle back through and just lay it down. Just make sure that this is not connecting to your thread. But yeah, so you can take your hand sew your stitch to keep it secure. And you want to cut this front part off. So that's the third way of doing that. And I'm going to go ahead and cut this because I secured it by back stitching. Okay. So that's the third way of doing it. My hand stitching to keep it secure. Alright. Okay, so here's another way of doing it. Hope my lighting is okay. Okay, so you're gonna hold your fabric here. Okay. And remember me saying earlier about putting your needle in to the fabric. Okay. And when you come back up to go back down, you want to pull the fabric back just a tad and go, because when you're using the hand wheel, it's going to move like it's sewing. So you want to move it back just a tad, go down in the fabric one more time, come back up, move it back, and then I would do it like a third time. I'll let my presser foot down, and then I would start my stitch. That will help me lock. Okay. Let's stitch. Okay. Now let's see the result of of how it looks from behind. It's gonna leave it knotted, okay, from behind. And then it's gonna have like a double stitch at the front. Okay, so that's the fourth way of securing a stitch from the beginning. Again, it's going to knot in the back. Okay. So another way you could probably secure a stitch, and I would make this one last resort, depending on what you're sewing, the fabric fusion. Just take a dab of your fabric fusion. Let's see, let's do this end. This is the end that I didn't secure. Don't cut your thread. And I would put like a very small dab there. And then I would take a piece of fabric and lay it there. And then allow it to dry. And put tight enough glue. So you kind of get the idea. Wait, I didn't put enough glue here. Try it again. There we are. And this dries clear, so you don't have to worry about too much. And with the fabric fusion, I've learned that you're gonna have to test the fabric that you're using. It doesn't go through the thicker fabric. Now with the thinner fabric, using this much glue, it will seep through. Okay. And once that dries, I would cut my sewing thread, a thread tail. Okay. I'll use this as the last option. I mean, it works, but it wouldn't be something, you know, I would do first choice.